Vance Boelter of Minnesota fame has been taken into custody alive, and I wanted to make this video for a few different reasons. Number one, to talk about the news. Number two, to get some reaction from around the internet, and number three, to prove that we're already being gaslit on this. So don't be surprised at the level of ridiculous that the news is going to reach the next few days. But the number four reason is very simply put, I want to show you the type of article that we're going to be reading, and then we'll get some outside opinions. But the article we're about to read took 8 people, 8 contributors to complete, and you will recognize the absolute ridiculous nature of that by the time we are done reading the article itself. The article is titled Minnesota Shooting Suspect Faces 6 Federal Charges and State First-Degree Murder Charges. Prosecutors say there is actually some dispute over whether or not first degree is in play. And you might be listening to this and saying, what? But there are documents on Twitter that show otherwise. So, what you need to know: suspect captured. Vance Boelter, the suspect in the shootings of 2 Democratic Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses, was arrested Sunday after what local police chief called the largest manhunt in state's history. At the command of SWAT teams on scene, Boelter began crawling toward law enforcement officers and surrendered. Tim Waltz says he was right there and it was wild. I'm kidding, he didn't say that, but I'm sure if we give it 6 months, he will say he was the lead man here, said the head of State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. First-degree murder charges. Boelter, 57, will face first-degree murder charges, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty said. Minnesota does not have the death penalty, so the maximum sentence would be life in prison without parole if convicted. This is exactly the type of case for which you would pursue the death penalty if it were available. This is the exact reason something like the death penalty, in my opinion, should be available. This is an open and shut case of someone committing assassinations. If you don't kill assassins, who do you dispose of? If it is not okay to have the death penalty for someone who is 100%, there's no mystery here, 100% guilty of heinous crimes and taking someone else's life, taking 2 other lives and attempting to take 4 lives. If that's not someone that doesn't deserve taxpayer-funded meals, then I don't know who does, right? So, federal charges also expected. Boelter is scheduled to appear in federal court on additional charges, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The exact federal charges were not immediately released, but a Justice Department official told CNN that Boelter is now in federal custody. In custody, I don't think there is any extent to which we should be. I think we should be prepared for absolutely anything to come out of this man's mouth. It has already been floated out there that he was on a certain side of the political aisle that definitely he was not, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there is no reason to believe anything that comes out of his mouth about anything. If you show up to someone's house looking like Uncle Fester and commit heinous crimes like this, you were obviously deranged, and we have to look at more than just what it is that you purport to be your own motivations. Lawmakers targeted. A gunman fatally shot State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Saturday at their home after wounding State Senator John Hoffman and his wife at their home. After the first attack, police proactively checked on Hortman's home, where they found a shooter posing as an officer before he fled. If they hadn't engaged him, then the attack may have continued throughout the day, an official said. Undoubtedly, it would have. This man was not setting out to take out 4 people. He had a list. We will not see the list. National level hit list. While a motive isn't known yet, the suspect had an apparent hit list with dozens of names, officials said. The list includes prominent Democratic figures with ties to Planned Parenthood or the abortion rights movement. The shootings unfolded on a tense day in national politics as tens of thousands participated in No Kings protests against the Trump administration, and the president hosted a military parade. No Kings. Have you heard of this before? Has this ever happened before? Maybe I am out of the loop. This is the first time No Kings has appeared on my radar. This is something that they promoted in order that there be national unrest. This was the leftist side of things plan this entire time. Something like this popping up. Maybe the guy's targets weren't who they wanted, but certainly they wanted violence like this. Certainly they did. Certainly they have been talking about this and things like this for a very long time. Now, I wanted to take it to Twitter. C3 says, Vance Boelter has $1 million house and lives in a tiny shack with a sweaty, overweight chap that works at Papa John's who calls Joe Biden Jim Biden. Sure, that checks out. For anyone who doesn't know, this is the guy that apparently Boelter was living with. He had read a text message from Boelter saying, it was apparently from Boelter to him saying, you know nothing about this, you knew nothing about this, you could not have stopped me, etc. And I mean, conspicuously, just all of the things that you would have to say out loud in order to clear someone else's name were said in that text. At the conclusion of reading the text, the media asked, hey, can we have a copy of that text message? And he said, I don't think that would, something to the effect of, I don't think that would be appropriate. This was private communication, something like that. And someone else said, hey, and I don't give the media credit often. This was absolutely pro. Someone else there said, hey, you think you could read it again? And he declined to even read it again. He was making it up all on the spot. That's what was going on. This fella on your screen here, said that Boelter was a Trump supporter. Very strange that a Trump supporter would have been personally appointed by Tim Walz. Very strange that a Trump supporter, and look, I don't consider myself on the right. I don't consider myself a Republican. I consider myself having been left behind by the left. I consider myself having been somewhat of a centrist that is now on the right because of default positioning forced upon me, hoisted upon me by the national media more than anyone else. And that's absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd that this is a right-winger doing this. The woman that he assassinated was assassinated because she had just voted with Republicans in order to take away Medicaid for illegal immigrants. In his car, he had flyers for No King's Day, did Boelter. So we're going to see this. We're going to see this 1,000 times. We saw, prior to Boelter being caught, I believe the timing was prior to Boelter being the primary suspect, or at least maybe it was not all that well known. Tim Walz came out and said, this is clearly politically motivated. Don't you know? Don't you know? Either Boelter was not the primary suspect, or Tim Walz knew that, hey, we're going to be able to pin this on the Republicans. Vance Boelter's bail was set at $5 million for killing 2 human beings and shooting 4. Trump's bail was set at $175 million for a civil fraud case. But they like to tell us it wasn't politically motivated. the hypocrisy keeps on rolling through. And this is why someone like myself, who is politically disaffected, who has my entire life been basically a political standoff. I consider myself, used to consider myself post-political. I just didn't want anything to do with it. Considering or finding myself more and more on the right side of politics, the right wing side of politics, because so little of this stuff actually makes any sense. That comes to us from Z, from Southern FFA family. Vance Luther Boelter has formally been charged, bail set at $5 million, 4 counts of second-degree murder with intent, not premeditated. The statement of probable cause confirms that he was dressed as a police officer and had identified himself as one. How is that not premeditated? If this is, in fact, the case, that this is being considered as second degree, that it is not premeditated, I don't know what to tell you. So I don't think this guy's ever going to see the light of day again, regardless of its first or second degree, because there are 4 counts on here. So even if it is second degree, you can keep him locked away for life. I don't understand how this could be anything but premeditated. Did he accidentally dress himself as Officer Fester and find himself at colleagues' houses? I don't know. I have no idea how that could be considered the case for someone doing what it is that Boelter did. This from Gator Gar. Oh, the previous text, I'm just trying to actually attribute these things, from Southern FFA family. Gator Gar says, so is Vance Boelter CIA or just a normal 7-Eleven manager turned preacher who owns a security company and lives in a halfway house away from his wife and 5 kids, and is also personally appointed by the governor of the state? It is a very strange picture being presented to us of Vance Boelter, someone who is all over the place, someone who I think you would maybe say has manic energy, if these are the things that he really did accomplish in his life. I think that we have to let the dust settle a little bit on some of this, but certainly I understand the case here that what is going on with this story as it emerges is murky. Very murky, and things are going to change, things are going to develop, and we are going to get a clearer picture of Vance Boelter, or at least a clearer picture of the Vance Boelter that the media wants us to have. Remember, we still have no details on the first Trump shooter. So we don't really have details on the second Trump shooter, and that guy was all over social media. So what we get from this, hopefully, is a sign of a brand new FBI, brand new CIA. I am doubtful of that at this point. But there is no question in my mind that we're going to be gaslit. Suburban Black Man says, now Tim Walz holds 2 press conferences following the capture of Vance Boelter after he killed 2 Minnesota lawmakers. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way we deal with our political differences. That is a quote from Walz. That's rich. Typical Democrat hypocrisy. So the only person to blame for this act is Boelter, okay? Straight up, flat out, start to finish. Boelter is the one who did what he did, but there is no one, absolutely no one more guilty of creating the political climate in which we currently find ourselves than Tim Walz. Tim Walz is just as guilty as anyone in the entire nation of making the heated situation that we find ourselves in. Some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth, it's all stupid. I mean, the guy hasn't had an intelligent quote. I mean, so memeable. It pains me. It really does pain me that there's 0% chance Tim Walz runs for president in 28, is chosen as a vice presidential candidate in 28. There's 0% chance of that. Why does that pain me? It is so funny, the stuff that is done with Tim Walz's words. I've become friends with school shooters. The moment that was the moment that happened, the moment that came out of his mouth, the meme culture literally, I can't say literally, audibly gasped. No matter where you were in the country, the moment Tim Walz said, I've become friends with school shooters, you gasped, knowing that the meme flood was going to be profitable forever. And that whole debate was so good. But anyway, that is all I have for the quotes here. It is going to be a torrent, a flood of gaslighting in the next few days as they try to make Boelter out to be a right-wing extremist. They're going to concentrate heavily on his religious ties. They're going to concentrate heavily on the fact that he dressed as a police officer. They're going to probably talk about a rugged character, right? They're going to talk about all of these things that would make him a MAGA guy. And it's going to be lies, and there's going to be a consequential portion of people who hear what they say, believe what they say, and affect things, voting patterns, etc. in the future. So we're just going to have to this is the next great hoax. This is the next great hoax, and it is upon us, and it is sad that people lost their lives in the process. But the Democrats will stop at nothing to try to seize this moment, to try to seize this event and flip it on its head. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, this is the sort of thing that I do on the channel. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.